In Australia, 1 in 11 people have been subject to domestic violence since the age of 15. That's 8% of the Australian population. 1 in 6 adult women has experienced physical or sexual violence by a current or former partner. This compares to 1 in 19 men. Domestic violence is vastly unreported crime. Australian women who had experienced violence from a current partner, 39% had never sought advice or support, and 80% had never called the police to report the crime. Domestic violence is also known as family violence. Domestic Violence Victoria describes domestic violence as the repeated use of violent, threatening, coercive, or controlling behaviour by an individual against a family member or someone whom they've had or have had an intimate relationship with. It is important to report on domestic violence as it raises awareness of the impact it has on the population and gives voice to the survivors. The Australian Press Council recommends that journalists follow their guidelines when reporting about family and domestic violence. At the end of your article, the Australian Press Council strongly recommends that you include a Sources of Assistance section. In this section, you should put information about helplines and their contact information. The Australian Press Council also advises that the Sources of Assistance section be phrased in a neutral tone. This is so if someone who has read, listened, or watched your article has been triggered by the material in the article, they have access to help if they need it. Care should also be taken to avoid stigmatisation of domestic violence, such as implying that the violence was caused by a person's mental illness or is part of their culture. The safety and well-being of those affected by family violence should be taken into consideration. As a journalist, you should not publish information that could cause or contribute to the risk of harm, offence or distress. ANROWS, Australia's National Research Organisation for Women's Safety, recommends that when reporting on domestic violence, you should not let the pressures of newsworthiness and profitability obscure your reporting. You must remain responsible and sensitive when reporting on violence against women, as stated in their media representations of violence against women and their children State of Knowledge paper. Our Watch provides a guide to reporting on domestic violence. Some key points their guide states are: always use the term domestic violence. Using language such as bashing and volatile relationship can minimize and trivialize a violent situation. Consistent language will allow the audience to have a better understanding of the extent of the problem in their community. Media coverage can influence individuals' behaviour as well as their attitudes, according to the UK-based organisation Zero Tolerance. The organisation warns in their Handle with Care media guide, if domestic violence is misreported on or is distorted in any way, this might encourage a person who is living with an abusive partner to stay for fear of not being taken seriously. A few key recommendations from the report include: journalists should carefully choose language when reporting on domestic violence and avoid implying that the survivor is to blame and portraying perpetrators as real men. Journalists should make careful use of images in their reporting on domestic violence and ensure that the images chosen do not distort the story, contribute to the problem, or objectify women. Journalists should treat domestic violence as a serious concern and use an appropriate tone in all reporting. The Dart Centre for Journalism and Trauma is a project run by the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism. In 2003, the North American researchers looked at the coverage that domestic violence was given in Washington state during 1 year. The study found that most articles offered little or no expert information on domestic violence. Instead, those articles quoted and interviewed police, coroners, and medical personnel over more knowledgeable people such as therapists, victims, or even families of victims. Australian Press Council guidelines discuss safety, responsibility, cultural sensitivities, context and content, and sources of assistance. Both the Australian Press Council and Our Watch advises when reporting on domestic violence, you should avoid using the victim's real name and other identifying information in your article, as it may not be safe, appropriate, or legal to do so. Our Watch advises that you should use local, national, and if appropriate, international statistics on domestic violence to add to the story. Miki Perkins is a journalist with The Age Australia. One of the topics she covers in her articles is family violence. As recommended by the Australian Press Council, Perkins includes, at the end of all her articles, a source of assistance section, which includes a hyperlink and phone number to Safe Steps. Safe Steps offers free access to professional support, such as counselling to women and their children. On some of Perkins' other articles, she was also included for help in an emergency, call 000. The MEAA, Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, Journalist Code of Ethics includes a list of standards that journalists should adhere to, and they include: do not suppress relevant facts or give distorting emphasis. Present pictures and sound which are true and accurate. Any manipulation is likely to mislead and should be disclosed. Our Watch advises that if it is possible to give a copy to the interviewed survivor, you should, as it gives them an opportunity for them to review your article and fact-check any errors. When reporting on domestic violence, you should always strive to state the facts. Be cautious not to put the victim or survivor in harm's way. Conceal the victim's identity if the article may put them in further danger. Remember to include a sources of assistance section at the end of your article with the relevant organisation for the area of publication. Caution, balance, and responsible journalism practice is key when reporting on domestic violence and family violence.